Good morning, good afternoon. Hello, colleagues watching us and listening to us from the globe. Welcome to this session. It is the 52nd session of the 75 sessions of the Oxford Real Farming session. And this, I'm sure, will be a very exciting one also, just to share our experiences on what we had at COP27 regarding agroecology and the future plans. My name is Karen Nekesa. I work for the Regional Schools and Colleges Permaculture Program as a communications and advocacy coordinator, but I'm also a member of the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, co-chairing the Climate Change Working Group. In our session today, we are going to have speakers that were really present at the COP27, just to speak to us and share experiences on what transpired and what we can do for the future. Just before we invite the speakers to speak, I'll take you through a brief description of the session. I'll begin by saying that agroecology received immense support from various African civil society organizations, government agencies, and climate change activists in the build-up to COP27 last year. And optimism for the adoption of sustainable solutions to the climate crisis, including agroecology being discussed within climate negotiation spaces, and of course, the issue on the Korea joint work on agriculture. So the COP27 was very significant to Africa, owing to the fact that it is going to be held it was held in Egypt on the African continent. Various climate actors, including a number of African civil society, were going to be present during the negotiations, and we are privileged to have some of them speaking to us at this hour. Those that have had the opportunity to access the Blue Zone of the COP27 also had the opportunity to engage with climate negotiators from various governments. And through AFSA, we were able to actually have side events with some of the governments from Africa. So in this session, we are going to hear from those who were present during the COP27 as they share their experiences and what they think are the best possible ways to continue rallying support for agroecology to be adopted by the governments as the most viable solution to the climate crisis. So as we prepare to listen to our speakers, I also want to just say that I was also present at COP27, and we really gathered support from the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, and we were able to follow issues on finance, adaptation, Koronivia work on agriculture, and gender. So it is very critical that when we're talking about the climate justice issues, we really think about the issues that I've just mentioned, and especially when we are following the COPs that as we also plan for COP28 this year. So allow me, without further ado, to invite our first speaker, but before he speaks, he's called Jose Arona, who is the Executive Director of Congo Basin Conservation Society and President of Environmental Civil Society in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. He is an agribusiness incubation network engaging youth in agribusiness for job creation. He's also a country ambassador of UBI Global, an exclusive group that includes business incubator and accelerator managers, corporate innovations experts, government representatives, and other innovators from around the world, seeking to create impactful collaboration in the global innovation community. Finally, Mr. Aruna is in charge of connecting country civil society peers and corporations seeking agriculture innovation and strengthens cross-border relationship with local groups facing similar opportunities and challenges. Mr. Aruna, you have the floor, please. Give us your presentations, but remember, we'll have a session for Q&A later. Thank you, you're welcome.
Thank you, Karen. Morning, everybody, and a happy new year. I'm very impressed with this introduction. Thank you. I will give my presentation here. What were Africans' expectations from the COP27? Apologize with my English. It's not very good because I'm from French country, Democratic Republic of Congo. African expectation for the COP27 were to see the concrete commitment on how the international community or developed country could make global financial flow more flexible, compatible with low carbon and climatic resilience and economic development. This was at both expectation from the COP27 and also the COP15, where I came recently in Montreal and Egypt. So what was the issue within this expectation? The issue was that the problem about the loss and damage that the developing country caused some indignation among African state and civil society at the conference before being the subject at last minute compromise that takes allowed COP27 to close on 20 November, today after the proposed date. The African continent was very disappointed by the outcome of the climate conference organized in his land, while the objective agreed in Glasgow in 2021 was to double the financing for adaptation. But this did not appear in the final text. And a strong concern was expressed that the target of developed country party to jointly mobilize 100 billion per year, but this has not yet been met. So about the Sharm el-Sheikh declaration. The Sharm el-Sheikh declaration was a result of numerous compromises, calling for a rapid reduction in emission, but with new ambition compared to the last COP in Glasgow. This situation is considered to be a step backward in relation to African expectation of the ambition of the previous COPs, particularly with regards to the most ambitious objective of the Paris Agreement containing the global warming. However, the COP27 was marked by the adaptation of a resolution described as historic by its promoter, notably compensation for the damage caused by climate change already suffered by the poorest country. However, this adoption of loss and damage left many questions unanswered, because we do not hear how this funding will function. It will be very specifically or rapidly access for access this funding to civil society and the government level. What is the bottleneck? The bottleneck remain the financial mechanism, which is not favorable to developing country and civil society. This money should not continue to be considered as a gift, but as a cooperation in the framework of compensation from polluting country in favor of non-polluting country. And what is the progress? We catch some progress in the COP27, but the progress is not obvious, as the two blocs do not agree. The only willingness was observed is the mind in certain donors who are showing the interest, the directly interest in starting to work directly with civil society on the ground on adaptation and mitigation action, especially on agroecology. However, much remains to be done, as donors are studying strategies and mechanisms that will allow them to work with African civil society. And AFSA, our alliance, is the door for that. If donors need to do better with developing countries, specifically in Africa. Some outcome of the COP27 after 2 weeks of discussion. The second week of the meeting in Egypt, we got some welcome news for the Adaptation Fund and the Climate Vulnerable Developing Country. The fund served as contribution announced nearly 230 million as a new pledge of contribution. And this will support the program that support local adaptation need, in the most vulnerable country. That summarize that AFSA is the door for that. What we expect for the adaptation fund, because adaptation fund is like a good way that civil society alliance like AFSA and the country will access directly to this funding. So some pledge and conclusion. The COP27 saw significant progress on adaptation, with government agreeing on how to take forward the global target on adaptation that will be concluded at the COP28 and feed into the first global assessment, improving the resilience for the most vulnerable. New pledge totaling more than 230 million were made at the adaptation fund at the COP27. This is some new pledge. This pledge will help many more vulnerable countries to adapt to the climate change through concrete adaptation, including agroecology. So, other announcements we got at the conference was about a setup of 25 new collaborative action in 5 key areas like electricity, road transport, steel, hydrogen, and agriculture. But the UN Secretary Antonio Guterres announced also 3.1 billion plan to enhance that every person on the planet is protected by yearly warming system over the next 5 years. But the UN Secretary General's high-level panel at Net Zero Commitment issued a report at COP27, serving as a practical guide to ensure credible and accountable net zero commitment for industry, financial institutions, cities, and the region. G7 plan, also called it the Global Shield Financing Facility, was launched at the COP27. This is also a new pledge to provide funding to countries affected by some disaster. So, announcing a total of 105.6 million as a new funding. Denmark, Germany, Ireland, Slovenia, Sweden, Switzerland, and Wallonia region in Belgium stressed to need to further support global environment facility to address the immediate climate adaptation need in low-lying and low-income country. But the big issue with Jeff, with the environment facility fund, is the mechanism of access with this fund. Maybe in COP27 and in COP15, this was the key issue, because this funding is very complicated to access it. Maybe in civil society, maybe in government level, and take much time, like 5 years, to be adopted. Indonesia also will mobilize 20 billion over the next 3 years to 5 years to accelerate a just energy transition. Significant progress has been made on forest protection with the launch of the Leaders Partnership on the Forest and Climate, which aim to unite action of government, business, and the community leaders to halt forest loss and land degradation by 2030. I think that this is what AFSA is willing to be done by preparing the big event in the Congo Basin region with all African countries on how we can move forward together about the issue of climate change, but by promoting agroecology and policy in our land. What we recommend? We recommend civil society should continue to advocate jointly via AFSA at the level of African state on the integration of agroecology in adaptation and mitigation policy in the COP28 agenda. And this could allow us to be willing to prepare well the COP28 discussion and how we can follow up about the loss and damage as adopted in the COP27. My conclusion is that the COP27 was a first experience for us of working with ABSA as a negotiator to have a common look at African issue on agroecology and access to finance. This is a big issue for finance access. African countries also need to organize themselves more and take the climate future as a priority for action in adaptation and mitigation by putting in place strong agroecology policy in the revised NDCs and collaborate with civil society for the implementation of the Paris Agreement at the local level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Josue. That was a very good presentation. And yeah, it is very important to prioritize agroecology and climate change related issues at the NDCs at country level. Thank you. Now we'll move to our next speaker from Ghana, a colleague from Ghana. His name is Mr. Wilberforce Laate. He is a Ghanaian and a social scientist. He holds an MA in Governance and Sustainable Development from the University of Cape Coast. He also holds a Diploma in Youth and Development Work from the Commonwealth Youth Program and the University of Ghana. He initially trained as an agriculturalist at the Ejura Agricultural College and worked with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture as well as the Presbyterian Agricultural Station at Choabi. In addition to his functions as the Deputy Executive Director, Wilberforce is a Program Director of CODE in Southern Ghana. So Wilberforce has a very, very long CV, but he's also currently leads CODE's agroecology work in Southern Ghana, as well as coordinates the Ghana agroecology movement across the country. Wilberforce, you're welcome to speak to us about what were the gains and losses for Africa from the negotiations at the COP27. Welcome.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Musa Usman, talking about pastoralists in Africa. Africa pastoralists number some over 1/3 of the African world population and about 40 of African GDP and about 10 to 80 individual countries GDP. Pastoralists or livestock population in Africa amounting to roughly 2.1 billion head in 2020. Goats and sheep followed as major stake species in the continent, with estimated population of 268 million pastoralists. Pastoralism is a subsistence in which pastoralists make a living through tending livestock. The species of animals are primarily cattle, sheep, goats, and local poultry. Pastoralists depend on livestock as sources of livelihood. Two forms of pastoralism exist: nomadism and transhumance. Contribute to healthy and nutritious diet, meat and milk, provide employment in the meat and milk value chain, provide manure that improve on the micronutrients of the soil, thereby improving the assets. Can we go to the next slide, please? A key feature of livestock in Africa is that they fulfill multiple roles, ranging from biogas power to in providing manure, milk, and meat. Traditionally, the pastoralist diet are derived from meat and milk as a staple food. Due to changing circumstances, pastoralists now supplement their diet and include the cultivation of grain like maize, beans, and vegetable in their diet. Next slide, please. There's key impact, some impact of climate change on pastoralists. Changing rainfall pattern, increased climate variability, lead to drying up of soil, leading to extreme conditions. Decrease in livestock productivities and increase in livestock deaths and lower livestock prices. Production in pasture due to increased temperature as prolonged drought cause some of the heat to dry up easily, thereby leading to extensive livestock losses. Decreased human labor productivity leading to food insecurity, malnutrition, and even death. Pastoralists are the most vulnerable community on planet Earth for climate crisis. Some strategy for mitigation and adaptation of climate change by the pastoralists. As you all know, climate change confronts our people with unprecedented challenges, including land degradation, exaggerated flood, and drought. These problems stem mainly from continuous emission from the use of fossil fuel, yet we are too often targeted as emitters just for our continuing our traditional lifestyle and livelihood, while extractive industry continue unchallenged. We call, therefore, for climate mitigation measures and adaptation plans that build on our traditional mobile land management strategy and knowledge, and that are adapted to variability. This requires that we are recognized. Our land and territory also recognize us as to not to undermine our resilience strategies. Next, please. Okay, let me also talk about the COP27. I think we all participated as delegates during this COP27 in Salma and Sheikh and Egypt. As one of them have said, one of the key outcome might be was the loss and damage, but participating at the Coronivia joint work on agriculture, on taking part in Coronivia joint work on agriculture meeting, the group meeting that discussed about agriculture, food security, and climate change. Despite the fact that agroecology is not mentioned on this text for the group, but there is hope it might be introduced in COP27. And I think we also hope that agroecology are on most civil society campaign and is in the corridor of the negotiation. Next, please. This is just to share with you some of the Boscoda strategy, and we call it alliance farming. And Hello, are you getting me?
Yes, yes, Musa, go on.
Alliance farming came in with new perspective in terms of strategies and approach in resolving this chronic, fatal, and affecting the natural resource user for decades. Strategies putting in place party directly affected crops and pastoralists at the center in resolving the conflict and had a social technical dimension within the framework of the legal instrument governing the agro-pastoral livestock subsector. This started with a consultative meeting with representative of main natural resource user crops group as well as relevant government services, NGO, administrative and traditional authority. The main objective was to deepen the stakeholder understanding of the problem and also propose solutions mainly related to the use and management of natural resources. Next slide, please. Well, these are some of the recommendations that we came out with, recommending the inclusion of agroecology as the best option for adaptation, mitigation of climate crisis, and its inclusion in country MDCs, National Determined Commitment, and NAP, National Adaptation Plans. The acknowledgement of the rules of pastoralists, indigenous knowledge in mitigation and adaptation of climate change within the framework of donor plus 20 manifestos. You can visit the link here for donor manifesto declaration. Direct climate finance to small circle farmer, fisher, pastoralists, and indigenous community to deliver sustainable food system through agroecology. Some pictures and on value addition like the milk, yogurt, and other things. You can also see meat, and can also see the farm. Next slide, and also the market. As talking about agroecology and cattle manure, you can see farm that is benefiting from animal manure to cultivate and make garden and maize. And this yielded a lot of fruit and win-win situation. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope the network have allowed you to listen a bit from my speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Musa, bringing in the issues of indigenous knowledge being acknowledged, and also issues of market and some of the very good pictures that you've taken as a case study of Boskuda. Please stay around for the Q&A and any other concerns as we give our colleague Wilberforce a chance to speak. Sorry, Wilberforce, I had introduced you before, but you feel free to just say your name and a few things about yourself in a minute, then you can continue with your presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. My name is Wilberforce Laate. I work with COP Compass in Ghana. And so my presentation is about the gains and losses for Africa from the negotiations. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so I can say that if you look at COP26, you realize that what do you call it? Much progress has been made in addressing the issues of climate change. We are not very intentional about what we are doing. The gatherings have continuously been an opportunity to deepen the business as usual. So I see it more as business as usual, coming out, coming to meet, making promises. And we have not been intentional about the commitments that we've been making, especially at COP26. All the other things that we pledged to do, we didn't even assess to see the state at which they are. What has happened? What did we plan to do? What has happened? Why haven't we been able to do what we have said we were going to do? So for me, those are very worrying stuff. And so I really, even though COP27, like from the previous speakers, ended up with some good commitments, I doubt if we are going to achieve them if we use the same business as usual model. Next slide, please. But in terms of the gains for us as civil society, as AFSA, as country programs, the agreement to, the loss and damage has been on the drawing board for some time. So the agreement to provide that funding for vulnerable countries that are hit hard by climate disasters, I think it's a welcome outcome of the meeting, or output of the meeting. And also the renewed commitments for the adaptation funds and the green climate funds. For me, these are the gains. In terms of the losses, agroecology is still not enshrined in documents, a climate change adaptation strategy. And for most of the developed countries, like I said earlier, they are less intentional about their commitments. I want to liken it to the David and Goliath relationship. So you have the in terms of sizes, because one group has the resources, the other group is compelled to do certain things without getting the resources to do them. So I think if the relationship is not like Jonathan and David, who were peers, who were friends, if it's not seen like that, then I don't think we'll get anywhere. And like one of the previous speakers said, we shouldn't see it as a grant, but we should see it as a joint commitment, in addressing this challenge. One of the losses also is that I didn't see Africa having a concerted voice, and our governments are more complacent in accepting short-lived solutions. I mean, if there's a COP, for instance, COP28, if Africa can have a pre-COP, meeting, agree, assess the commitments that were made in COP27, and then identify the gaps, and then you can now come up with strategies to address them, so that when we meet our colleagues from other continents, we have a position, we have a voice. But it looks like we were just there as Africa, much as we tried to fight. I mean, some of the negotiations were heated because Africa was trying to restate their position. But I think that if we had planned much better, we would have had a stronger voice as Africa, but that didn't seem to happen. Next slide, please. And I think for me, this should be a wake-up call for African leaders to choose to protect the interests of our collective humanity over the profits of corporations who thrive on the destruction of the planet. So you realize that they engage us as individual countries, and because of individual leaders, and then we begin to follow after them. We come out with policies and decisions that favor them, rather than looking more at our individual countries and looking at our people our collective humanity. What are we doing to protect their interests, you know? And I think we need to also be careful about the need for us to defend the welfare of the present as well as the future Africans, future generations, those yet unborn. We should know that we as leaders of Africa, we have a commitment for those yet unborn. And so the way we are managing the resources today, we have dire consequences in the future, and we need to be very careful as African leaders. And I think that we need to propose strategies that promote and preserve our biodiversity environment, our culture, our practices, and well-being. Next slide. So using our agriculture as an example, and I think we have all been talking about it, agroecology is a modern, scientific, and extremely viable farming system. We should come to the point where we can defend it. In Ghana, for instance, last year was quite remarkable in terms of the work of the Ghana agroecology movement. There's a common understanding between CSOs and government. The government in terms of Ministry of Food and Agriculture, we have agreed on a national understanding. So we have made, it's clear that agroecology is different from climate smart agriculture. It's also different from conservation agriculture. And so agroecology is the main set, you know, and that's the understanding that we have. This year we'll be working towards having a common definition. And if this can be enshrined in our documents, then we can share it with other people, other countries, you know. We are getting our ministries to appreciate the fact that agroecology is also modern and it's scientific, you know, and it's a viable farming system. The fact that it can feed Africa with culturally appropriate, healthy, and nutritious foods, you know. And so the issue of monocultures, land grab, degradation of industrial by industrial agricultural practices and all those stuff are things that we can minimize or eliminate if we go for agroecology. And so we want to continue this year, but we want to pray that African leaders can come together, understand exactly what is happening, think more of their people, think more about the future generations, and see how collectively we can come out with strategies, you know, to make agroecology stand out as a viable alternative to the conventional chemical farming. Thank you.
Thank you, Willie. That was our last speaker. We were supposed to be 4 of us, but again, we took a bit of time on working out on the technical issues on connectivity for some of our speakers. So the last speaker has not been able to join because of the same issue, but I think for us now, the 3 are enough. So thank you very much, Wilberforce. The issue also has been, yeah, and thank you, you've talked about it. We keep getting questions of can agroecology feed Africa? And you know, this comes from people we believe in that are accountable to our countries, to the globe, to the international, space. But again, they still keep asking you just to hinder us from discussing the issue of agroecology probably, but also keep on asking us how best can we even showcase the best practices from agroecology? And we have so many case studies from Africa and around the globe on agroecology. So we believe that, yes, it can fill the world, and of course with nutritious and healthy food. So you're now welcome for the question and answer session. Our audience, I hope you're still with us. We apologize for the technical hitches, but we are now ready for the Q&A. So we'll be checking out for that. Kindly keep them coming so that we can respond to them.